Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Pashatai Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. How many of you have got the copy of Bhagavad Gita? Raise your hands. Okay, good. So my request again, those of you who have are coming for this program, kindly value your time and carry a copy of Bhagavad Gita. If you don't have, you can pick it from behind. Write your name on the first page, and while we are discussing, flip through the pages, make some notes on it, so then it becomes a personal copy of yours. Don't tell it, Prabhuji, online पढ़ लेंगे. Online तो ना जाने हम क्या क्या पढ़ते रहते हैं. You know, we can have this little investment in having a copy of Bhagavad Gita. So today we are going to start with the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Before I begin with that, let me ask a question to all of you. According to Vedic understanding, there is an examination that we all have to write. Nobody can avoid that. It's not about your BCom or BSc exam, but it's a different kind of exam. It's something which is mandatory. Whoever is born have to attempt it. What do you think what potentially this exam could be? And Vedic sciences looks at the whole subject matter in this context. Please raise your hand. Who do you think knows the answer for it? Okay. Somebody new? Yes. Can't hear that. What's that? That's okay. What do you think? What would be the answer? But no, I'm taking exam. But to आपका entry है. You have already entered. Okay, yes, behind the whole life an exam. Yeah, you sound very sad about life. You made the whole life as an exam. Thank you. Good answer. Okay, yes. Death is an examination. That's how the subject matter of death has been treated. We'll talk about it. Let's introduce. I'm little feeling scared to talk about the subject matter. Death. Nobody wants to talk about the subject matter. How many of you agree? Yes or no? Death is the last thing that you want to sit and discuss. That too on a Saturday evening. When people in the world are busy watching movies and playing cricket and whatnot, you and I have come here to speak and discuss on the subject matter of death. But the Vedic understanding of it is entirely different. When you look at the subject matter of death, different religious traditions across the world looks at it in a different context. Even the final rites happens differently. In some traditions, it is cremated. In some traditions, the body is thrown in the river. In some tradition, the body is thrown into the forest. Many different kinds of things happen. However, in the Vedic tradition, as much as birth is considered a joyous occasion, so much so, death is also considered a celebration. Death only becomes a sad story when we don't know what's next. And all of us have had a recent experience of it during the COVID times. Now, if you look back at the COVID, we'll probably say, what was a big deal? Put a mask, move around. Yes? I mean, how many of you, even before taking vaccination, were moving around putting a mask? Raise your hand. Many of us, nothing much happens. And those with whom something happened, probably they didn't put masks, didn't take some basic precautions. But do you remember the first 3 initial months of the COVID lockdown? अगर घर में हमारा ही सखा, बच्चा या पति या पत्नी खास देता था, तो ऐसे देखते थे, वे, that person used to look like a terrorist time bomb. as if it's going to blast off. And what was the reason? It was just uncertainty. We didn't know because he has sneezed what's going to happen next. How many of us are going to get sick like that? So generally, death becomes a terrible subject only for those who do not know what's after death. I remember I was a very, very young child. My grandfather had died. What do you expect? Old age means death. And I remember when his dead body was brought, I was so young, I even didn't know what death means. And I don't know how young, I was probably maybe in what do you call junior KG or something like that. How much sense do you have that time? And I was believing, because all our family members have assembled, looking back at, I can tell that everyone in the family knew our grandfather had died, so everyone had come to the home. So I also went along with my parents. For me, I didn't know, nobody told me also, and what would I understand being such a young child? And I saw my siblings, and we were busy playing. I categorically remember looking out the window across the street, an ambulance came. And I remember the moment ambulance came, everyone in the house began to cry. Tiny child, and I'm wondering why everyone is crying. Then I came out, and I was curious, what's going on? Why everyone is crying? Then I saw some people, opening the back door of the ambulance and bringing out somebody or someone, I don't know what it is, apparently covered with a white cloth. The moment that thing came out, everyone began to cry and howl more loudly. And I'm just scratching my head, what's going on? What's going on? And that time I remember I was pushed back to go inside the room, inside the house. This is not something where a child has to be there. And I was lining up at the window and looking at it. The dead body was kept in the veranda. I still didn't know what's happening. Until finally, to begin performing the final rites, somebody took off the chadar off my grandfather's face. Then I saw, of course, I didn't understand what it is. I thought maybe he's sick or something. That's the reason he's lying on a bed like that. However, after a period of time, I also began to cry just because I saw my parents crying. And I'll tell you, it was such an intense moment. Now, you cried. It's not that everyone loved him. That's the reason everyone cried. Some people potentially could be happy, chala gaya. Sometimes people really get fed up with us and they say, thank God, gaya. It's pretty interesting. Fast forward 20 years, or maybe 18 years. Let's go back to somewhere around 2008. I was in Chicago. Here, an 85-year-old grandfather who lived his life, got all his kids married, everyone settled, everything he did, everything is done. Yet after his departure, everyone is crying. Fast forward 20 years down the line, or maybe not 20 years, 16, 17 years down the line, I'm in Chicago now. A 5-year-old son passed away. A 5-year-old son passed away. The son belonged to a family where the lady was from somewhere from Europe, and she was married to an American man. The lady was very serious about spiritual practice. The man, although was serious about spiritual practice, later on, he again went back to his old habits of drinking and etc. So the lady was really troubled in her household life also. On top of it, for 10 years in their marriage, they couldn't have a child. After 10 long years of waiting, she had a child, and the child was so lovable. He was a 5-year-old boy, and he played perfect madanga. He was so good in so many things. He was, what you can say, the star of the community. Everyone, whenever you go to temple, if he's there, everyone run to that child. Everyone loved the child. Can you imagine being a mother and father of such a child which is loved by everyone? And everyone would take the child in the lap, and everyone would say, this boy is special. This boy is special. He was so obedient, such a sincere boy. 5-year-old went to sleep, never woke up. Went to sleep, never woke up. This news was so devastating, so devastating. I remember I was in Chicago, everyone was wondering what will happen to the mother. Because her only support system was the child. That was the only person to whom she can really express her love. Husband had already become distracted from his practices and whatnot. Everyone went to the crematorium with an understanding that we need to console her. We need to make that lady strong. And you would not believe our very senior leaders, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, His Holiness Ropa Swami Maharaj, His Holiness Chandramauli Swami Maharaj, many others were there for the final rites. All congregation went with an idea, we're going to console that lady. Everyone got consoled by the mother. Everyone got consoled by the mother. She was completely calm and peaceful. She didn't see death as a crisis in her life. When I saw this, at that point of time, I was remembering what I witnessed almost 16, 17 years in my own, 16, 17 years ago in my own life when I saw my grandfather passing away, old man passing away. Then so many people were crying. And as I said, not everyone definitely loved him. You know, child, everyone is loved, loves the child. And you have a 5-year-old, adorable, lovable child passing away. And mother is consoling everyone. No, I'm not worried. I know where my son has gone. Where has he reached? And that's the time I remember sitting back and thinking, I say, yeah, that is the glory of our Vedic culture. Why we cry, why we suffer is only because of not knowing what's next. So kindly don't get petrified or terrified with the subject matter called as death. This is the reality which nobody can shy away. Jatasya hi dhruva mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha. Tasmad priharyate natam sochitam arhasi. Lord Shri Krishna, 2nd chapter, verse number 27 says, whenever there is a sunrise, be assured there is going to be sunset. Can you change that reality? And as soon as there is a birth, death is as sure. It's a truth, we have to face it. Now question comes, if death is the subject matter, birth we have no control, but death is something which you're going to face. How can we prepare, face it? And is there something that Vedic sciences can teach us and tell us what's beyond death? Or the life just ends, starting with a chemical, ending with a chemical, or there is beyond something chemicals? This is the subject matter. It's a very, very important subject matter. Death, the end. Death is an exam that nobody can avoid. It's the main subject matter of this chapter. We'll take a look. So as usual, as we give an acronym for each chapter, the acronym for this chapter is DEAD. Interesting, dead. Let's begin with first section, where D for doubt, verses 1 to 4. Once again, this chapter begins with Arjuna's inquiry. Very interesting. Our Vedic scriptures are not monologue. It's a dialogue, where a question is asked, an answer is given. You know, when question is asked, it is of the interest of the audience. When no question is asked, it is of the interest of the speaker. And then we are forced to hear whatever the speaker says. But when an audience asks, then it's a subject matter of the interest of audience, which means Arjuna is asking question on behalf of all of us, and that's how the subject matter becomes relevant. To keep it concise, what initially Arjuna asked, just to make one more point, look, at no point of time Krishna and Bhagavad says, enough is enough. How many questions are you going to ask? Krishna said, welcome, whatever questions you have, keep asking. So Vedic sciences, Vedic culture had always encouraged. I don't know at what point of time we changed this attitude. How many of you had an experience, you asking something to your parents, and parents replied, बदमाश, देवी देवताओं के बारे में ऐसे प्रश्न नहीं उठाते. तुम्हारी माँ करती थी, तुम्हारी माँ की माँ करती थी, तुम भी करो. How many of you heard something like this? Raise your hand, please. हो सकता है आपने बोला भी हो, depending on your age. But that's not. We encourage inquiry. Inquiry is a sign of intelligence. And Krishna encourages, and Arjuna asks a question. I'll summarize this particular section. He asked 8 questions. This requires a little more discussion, so I'll focus on the key point of the chapter here. So like this, Krishna begins to give an answer. You'll get the presentation up on your student portal where you can check it out. What is Brahman, what is Adhyatma, Karma, Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, and Adhiyagya, and Paramatma, like that. And finally, these are some terminologies. As it requires an explanation, I'm skipping it. We'll come to the main subject of this chapter. I'm not denying discussing it. We'll discuss it in later on sessions when we go into detailed study of Bhagavad Gita. So the last question out of the 8 questions that Arjuna asked in the 8th chapter was, how can one attain a spiritual destination at the time of death? Okay, let me ask this thing. How many of you would have a copy of Bhagavad Gita either with you here or at your home or your parents' house? Please raise your hand. Oh, interesting. I'll come to you. I'm going to tell a story about it, then you can add to it. I'll come to you on that. Interesting point. अभी मैं इसके बारे में स्टोरी बताऊंगा तब आप ये ऐड कर सकते हैं. So it looks like most of us have a copy of Bhagavad Gita. I don't know if I should ask this question, but maybe I can try to ask in all my humility. How many of you have read it? Some of you have read it. Great. What is the most important subject matter according to you? What becomes most important is what is most repetitive. Yes? What is one thing which is most repeated in Bhagavad Gita? Who are we? Okay, that's discussed in second chapter. It's one of the important subject matter. I'm saying something which has been repeated almost every chapter. And on that basis, I'm saying this is the most important theme. One of the important themes, but not the most. Yes, please go ahead. Karma, okay? I understood your sentiment. Okay, the girl over here. Yes, go ahead, go ahead. Surrender to Krishna and he'll take care of everything. All right, all right. Something more than that. Something more than that. Yes.
Soul.
Soul. Something more than that. What else? Yes, Shamananda. Give up weakness, stand up and fight. So therefore you stood up to answer this. Give up your shyness, stand up and answer. Thank you for that. All right. So I'll tell you something very interesting. As unfortunately, I believe it was last Gita Jayanti, I spoke entirely to us on this particular topic. I said, this, you got to understand what Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita. I don't know, it's so amazing, people miss it. Krishna is telling one thing every chapter, every chapter. And what is? Come back home, back to Godhead. Come back home, back to Godhead is the message of Bhagavad Gita. Everything else is subordinate to that. And how do you go back home, back to Godhead? For that, Krishna gives the process also. That is bhakti. And therefore, bhakti is also repeated in every chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Every chapter, beginning from second chapter, not the first chapter, from second chapter, every time Krishna is saying, this is not your home. Your home is in the spiritual world. So here, a question arises in Arjuna's mind. My dear Lord, how can I attain the spiritual destination which you have been speaking to me all this while? And how do you attain that? That happens after death. So after I die, how can I go back home, back to Godhead? Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti so Arjuna. One who knows the science of janma and karma, that is transcendental, after giving him his birth, he does not take birth in this world. And like this, Krishna keeps on giving references time and again that such a living entity goes back home, back to Godhead. So that's the question is asked, after we die, my dear Lord, how can I go back home, back to Godhead? Therefore, in Vedic sciences, death is considered an exam. You pass an exam if you go back home, back to Godhead. You failed if you take birth again here. So all of you in the past life, including me, failed. That's the reason we all are here. Question is, do we fail again or do we pass? This chapter gives us some understanding on that. So Krishna begins to speak on this topic, how to face the final exam or how to face death, so that we can move forward beyond this material realm and enter into the spiritual world. This should not be a subject matter at this point of time in your minds. Is there anything beyond life? We have already established we are not the body but a spirit soul. When we say we are not the body, does not mean body need not be taken care. Body is just an instrument for us to interact with this material world. So body is also ours, subtle body is also ours. When I say it is mine, it does not become I. I is different than my hand. I is different than my mind and intelligence. That is soul. So here, from 5th verse to 8th verse, the subject matter of end of life is described. Let's take a look and begin with some interesting story. This is a story of Mr. Prakash, where something mother was also trying to make a point here. He lived with his wife in San Diego, and his wife got connected to our ISKCON San Diego temple, where every Sunday evening there used to be a Bhagavad Gita classes. at that point of time by Badri Narayan Prabhu, who later on became His Holiness Badri Narayan Swami. So every week she will go, but her husband, Mr. Prakash, was like, no going. He had zero interest in such kind of philosophical discussion, etc., etc. And it makes sense also. Everyone really cannot find taste in it, isn't it? Think about it. You have purchased a movie ticket, an expensive movie ticket, and you're standing at an entry point of a theater. And you know, in theater, you enter from here and an exit is just across here. The exit door opens, a lot of people come out, and that one of your friend also comes out. And he looks at you and you both hug each other. Oh, kitne samay ke baad mile hain. And the friend asks you, what are you doing here? And you tell him, I've come to watch this movie. And the friend said, this movie? I just watched it. Let me tell you, hero ne hi खून किया था. What will you say? बदमाश, मेरा सारा सस्पेंस खराब कर दिया. You know, don't worry, हाँ. एंड में यही पता चलेगा, जो हीरो हीरो था, हीरो नहीं था, हीरो विलन था. How many of you will come agree? या तूने मेरे 500 रुपए डुबा दिए? मैं उस सस्पेंस के लिए बताया था. Yes or no? Agreed or not? Similarly, speaking about subject matter of death, that whatever you do, at the end of it, you don't take anything with you. Everything you leave behind. People think, यार मजा किरकिरा मत करो. जब होगा देखेंगे. So Mr. Prakash was at that kind of a mindset. No worries, he will come, drop his wife, go back home, and then come back right on the time of prasadam. Very happily, he will take prasadam. At least one good thing he had, he was taking prasadam. There is nothing wrong. We encourage people to come like this for prasadam, because prasadam works, prasadam magic happens. Couple of months down the line, Mrs. Prakash, the wife of Mr. Prakash, in a very frantic tone, called up temple president, Mr. Badri or Badri Narayan Prabhu. Prabhuji, please help, please help. My husband has got a heart attack. He's hospitalized. I want you to please rush to the hospital. Please pray to the deities. Please protect my husband. I have nobody like this. She, pleaded to the temple president, Badri Narayan Prabhu. He rushed to the hospital. He survived the heart attack, but somehow he went into coma. So he's living, but he went into coma. Fine, he went and met him, but because you are in coma, you can't really experience anything. So he came back, and this Mr. Prakash stayed in a state of coma for almost a month. And every week, Badri Narayan Prabhu will go and meet Mr. Prakash. Meet him, chant Hare Krishna, read something from Bhagavad Gita, and come back. Because although if you're in coma, your soul can hear. Maybe your body is not, reciprocating, but the soul, Atma, can hear. So like that, he will speak and come back. And the wife was with him all through. After a month, the wife called up again in a very frantic tone. Badri Prabhu, please come to the hospital quickly. Please come to the hospital. Badri Prabhu said, what happened? My husband has come out of coma and is calling for you. He wants to meet you only. And prior to this, he has never ever met the temple president. He was least interested. So Badri Narayan Prabhu said, all right. He rushed to the hospital. And as soon as Mr. Prakash saw Badri Narayan Prabhu enter the ward, he immediately sat down, caught hold of Badri Narayan Prabhu and said, Swamiji, 4 times they came, 4 times. Now everyone is confused who came 4 times. Badri Narayan Prabhu had visited every week, which means he visited 4 times. So Badri Narayan Prabhu said, yes, that's okay. He was thinking, he was trying to express his gratitude. That's okay. I'm happy I could be of some service to you. No worries. He said, no. 4 times they came, 4 times. Then the family member, the wife, was thinking probably he's talking about her. So the wife said, well, what 4 times? I was there whole month. What are you talking about? The husband said, no, you don't understand. 4 times they came, 4 times. And then the, the medical staff, a nurse, she said, we lost him almost 4 times and we saved it, or we saved him. Again he said, no, you're not understanding. Badri, Swamiji, they came 4 times. Now Badri Narayan Prabhu began to a little bit understand. He said, were they the good looking people or the ugly looking people who came to you? And then he said, ugly, ferocious looking people. What happened? So they are called as Yamadutas. At the time of death, it's the Yamaduta who separates our subtle body from the gross body. That's how the subtle body goes and taken to the next position. So Badrinath Prabhu asked, what happened? So this, our Mr. Prakash said, when I saw those four distorted creatures, I got so terrified. They put a chain around my body and they were trying to drag me out. And I screamed at that point of time, Krishna, I know no one. Please protect me. The moment they heard the name of Krishna, they ran away. Fine. They came again. Again they caught hold of me. Again I said, Krishna, you protect me. I know no one without you, apart from you. Again they heard the name of Krishna. Again they went away. Third time they came. And the medical staff agreed. Nurses told them that we lost him almost 4 times. Third time again they came. And he said, Krishna, I surrender unto you. Please protect me. I don't know what to do. Again they heard the name of Krishna. They went again. They went away. And these Yamdutas, they came back the 4th time. And then Mr. Prakash said, well, this time they did not came alone. When they came, and I was chanting, Krishna, protect me, Krishna, protect me. At that time, 4 good-looking men also came. And then Badrinath Prabhu said, Vishnu Dutas? And he gave a description. He said, yes. And when these distorted creatures saw these celestial beings, they immediately left, saying that, well, if you have come to this guy, our jurisdiction is over. As soon as they went, Vishnu Dutas or this celestial being blessing me, they also went, and I woke up. So Badriji or Swamiji, I want to tell you, please take me to temple. I don't want to go to home. And this Mr. Prakash is a duly initiated. If you ever visit San Diego Temple, if you see a middle-aged man, this is 10 or 12 years ago incident, which means he should be somewhere around 55 plus age. If you see a middle-aged man on the altar doing deity worship, you go and tell him, Mr. Prakash, are you the one? You probably got the right guy. And now every day he does deity worship. This is not one example. There are many, many examples like this. So, just like if anyone is in the medical profession, go and ask them. The nurses will tell you how many patients have a near-death experiences. Sometimes they have out-of-body experiences. Just because they don't want to talk about this subject matter, because still our whole world is governed by Abrahamic tradition or understanding and the basis of Abrahamic tradition. You understand Abrahamic? Starting with Judaism, Christianity, and later on Islam. This is what the most of the population subscribe to. Willingly, probably less. Forcefully, yes. They're forced to believe in these things. So their tradition says there is no concept of soul. They do accept a concept of spirit, but there is no concept of next life. So otherwise, if these subject matter is put forward, and we have already discussed about reincarnation subject, where Dr. Ian Stevenson, he gave a documented evidence of almost 2,500 plus documented cases of reincarnation, which he as a scientist have verified that yes, these are documented cases. So that's the point. These are the facts. Somehow people just don't want to accept it. Anyways, so how do we attain Krishna? Let's come to the subject matter. Krishna gives 2 profound verses here explaining how you and I can pass the final exam. And he says, please repeat after me. Antakale jamameva smaran muktva kalevaram. You got to be louder, huh? If you chant loudly now, there is a potential that you might remember this verse at that time. It will save you long distance. Say it loudly. Antakale jamameva. सबको फाइनल एग्जाम पास करना है. All right. स्मरण मुक्त्वा कलेवरम यः प्रयाति समद्भावम याति नास्ति यत्र संशया Let's look at the last line. Yati nasti yatra samshaya. There is no doubt about what I'm telling you, Arjuna. No doubt about what? Ya prayati sa madbhavam. Madbhavam means my situation, which means my award. There is no doubt about it, Arjuna. If you do this, which is mentioned in the first two lines, without a doubt, ya prayati. Prayati means attains. Sa madbhavam. You will attain to my destination. What should be done to attain that destination? Therefore, in this chapter ahead, Krishna also compares material world versus spiritual world. So then we understand why we should be aiming for spiritual world. That is madbhavam. So what we need to do to attain that, Krishna says, antakale cha mahameva, antakala. Antim kal, cha mahameva, ma means me. Eva means certainly. Smaran means remembrance. At the end of life, Krishna says, Mam Eva, Smaran. Simple Sanskrit, you understanding it? I'll just like, Mam Eva Smaran. At the end of life, Ma means Krishna speaking, means me. If anyone remembers me, Muktva Kalevaram. Kalevaram means body. Muktva means giving up. While quitting the body, if anyone remembers me, Ya Prayati Samadbhava, you will attain my destination. That's the secret formula. How to go beyond the sufferings of this material world, Krishna says, if while quitting a body, person can remember me. Now you may say, fantastic, Hari Bol, I'm going now, I got the formula. At the end of life, I'll say, Krishna, go back home, back to Godhead, let me do whatever damn I want to do it. Well, if in case you're thinking like that, you're definitely mistaken. Because there is one person who you could never cheat. And he's the greatest cheater of all. That is Krishna. If you think you are such a smart guy or a lady, you can cheat Krishna, that ain't going to happen. Why? How many of us have control on our thoughts? Can you decide what you're going to think? And even if you decide, even if you're able to think, can you hold on to that thinking for next couple of minutes? Not possible. Let me put it very simple. Death is very far-fetched for some of us. Well, we don't know what, when, how it happens, but nonetheless, how many of you had an experience of headache? Please raise your hand. Headache. All of us? How many of you in that situation don't feel like doing anything? Baat mat karo, dur hat jao. Dekho mat idhar. We become a little irritated. Mind goes crazy. अबे छोटे से सिर दर्द में ये हालत है जब शरीर का एक एक अंग दुखेगा सोचो क्या होगा. That is a very painful situation. Then you think, oh, Krishna, I can remember him. Well, you try remembering Krishna when you have a headache. If you're successful, then we'll talk about it. It is not easy. So practice for it. But that's a formula. Srila Prabhupada gives a profound purport, reading out a few points from the purport here. And this was the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness is transferred to the spiritual world. Supreme Lord is the purest of the pure. Therefore, anyone who remembers Krishna becomes pure. The word Smaran is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness and devotional service. Something very interesting here. Please do not think, I can control Krishna. I can control the Supreme Lord. Just because you are able to say Krishna is not because you are qualified to do so. It just, of course, you are qualified in one way, just like Vedic scripture says, somebody has taken a birth in this holy land of Bharatvarsha. I mean, how holy it to be. You have birthplace of Lord Ram Ayodhya. You have birthplace of Lord Shri Krishna, Mathura and Vrindavan. You have nearby Dwarka. You have Pandharpur. You have a birthplace of great Saint Sant Tukaram Dehu. This whole place, Punya Bhumi of Bharat, is filled with, Lord Ram walked from north to south. We have so many, almost every other place we have some pastime or lila of the Supreme Personality God have taken place. It is mentioned who takes birth in this particular land, which is considered to be holy land in the whole world, has to be definitely pious. So we able to chant, hear about Krishna, is owing to the fact that there is certain piety in the background of ours, which is allowing us to do it. You don't believe me? Let me give an example. I might have quoted this before also. Back in 2009 was the time I was visiting Las Vegas for a week. I was staying with the devotees. They had a center, Sutapa Prabhu and Krishna Mai Mataji. Both of them from Europe, different countries in Europe, married, moved to America, settled there, doing the services there, working, taking care of their family, and doing some outreach. Both of them, on different time, occasion of that 1 week of my stay with them, was sharing their story of how they came to Krishna consciousness. Mother Krishnamaya was telling me that she came to ISKCON Center for almost close to couple of weeks. And in that center, there was Radha Krishna deity. For almost couple of weeks, although she was looking at the altar, she never saw the deity only. She never saw the deity. After a few weeks of regular coming to the temple, hearing kirtan, eating prasadam, one day suddenly he felt like, oh, there is somebody standing. And after the program, she went and asked, hey, who are these two people who are standing here? And the host asked, you have been coming from the last 1 month. You are asking for the first time? And she was so shocked. She said, what? They have been standing from the last 1 month. And he said, they have been standing over the last 10 years. She couldn't see that because she didn't have that prerequisite purity to be able to see the Lord. Husband was sharing interesting thing. He was going, attending kirtan programs. It took him more than 3 weeks before he could utter the word Krishna. It will just not come out. He would try to dance, he would try to chant, but Krishna sound would just not come out. And when we were discussing like this, then we were talking about the same subject matter here. Actually, to be able to hold the sound Krishna, which is a spiritual sound vibration, it is not in everyone's capacity. Just like how many of you remember the example of, I believe Ratnakar, right? Narad Muni met him and he said, chant the name of Lord Ram. He couldn't chant. Remember? Because he was so impure, so impious, he could not chant the name of Lord Ram. So then Narad Muni said, well, if you cannot chant the name of Lord Ram, what do you do? Chant opposite. This is not some historical stories. This is the real stories and something which I witnessed myself. That's the point here. Pure souls only can remember the Lord. Therefore, the bhakti culture that we practice is to cultivate that purity so we can hold Krishna, hold for a longer time. That's the idea. And how do we do so? How do we cultivate that purity? Prabhupada, right? Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. One wants to achieve success at the end of his life. The process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should constantly and incessantly chant the Mahamantra. Everyone, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I was recently for this Pran Pratishtha occasion at Ayodhya. I was there for almost a week. I had never had such an experience in any place as I had in Ayodhya. 24/7, every nook and corner of Ayodhya, there was only chanting of Lord Ram's name. It was such an incredible environment. Everywhere the ether was so surcharged with the name of Lord Ram that despite being extremely cold, no public transportation available, we were so enthusiastic. We would walk 7 to 8 kilometers on foot from one end of the Ayodhya city to another end of the Ayodhya city just to hear the chanting of Ram Naam, Jai Shri Ram, and many different bhajans which was resounding in that Ayodhya place. I cannot share that experience. I could only say, I wish you all were there to really witness what's the potency when there is a constant chanting of the holy names of the Lord goes on. And nobody cared for anything. Everyone has forgotten everything there, I'll tell you. I met the Muslims who were living there. I met the locals over there. There was a complete nakabandi. Nobody could go from here and there. No transportations were allowed. There were tight security. Nobody cared for anything. Everyone was so surcharged and absorbed. Just Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram. Generally, you get this kind of experience when you go to some, in Vrindavan on some holy occasions where everyone chants Srimati Radharani's names or Krishna name. What an amazing experience. That is what cultivates purity. After making a point, the secret to attain the highest destination is to remember me. And how do we cultivate remembrance? By cultivating purity. How do we cultivate purity of our consciousness? By chanting the holy names of the Lord. That's the prescribed process for current day and time. Then Krishna gives a general law of transmigration. This is about going back home, back to Godhead. But what is the general law of transmigration? How have you attained this particular form that you have? None of us chose it, right? But how did we got it? There has to be a system. See, do you agree in the universe there is a great orderliness from the micro level to the macro level? Everything happens in order, yes? Now, if there is an order, which means there is a system. If there is a system, somebody must have created a system, which means there is a rule book which defines who does what. So, every human mother and father giving birth to a human only, which means there is a system. There is no case of accident or random there. So question comes when everything is designed, organized, so does our birth must be designed now. We getting this body, there must be a cause behind it. It just cannot be randomly we fell from the sky, opened our eyes and we are here. It just can't happen. Krishna gives the answer here. Please repeat. Yam yamapi smaran bhavam tayajate ante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitah tam eveti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. Tam eveti kaunteya, you will attain to that position or situation sada tad bhava bhavita, what you thought of, which means yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tayajate ante kalevaram. While tayajate ante, at the end of life, kalevaram, giving up the body, whatever you thought of, accordingly you get your next destination. I'll repeat again. At the time of quitting your body, whatever you remembered, accordingly you get your next body. So the question is all about thinking, our thought process. Therefore, 6th chapter, Krishna focuses so much on the subject of mind control. So my question to all of you is, what thoughts potentially can occur to us when we are going through a very painful situation, sickly body, disease situation? What thoughts? Thoughts are unlimited. What thought would most potentially will come to us? What would be the logic or the science behind it? Can anything randomly will come? No, randomly cannot happen. There is nothing called as randomness. The randomness is only with that fellow who quoted randomness. Everything else is orderliness. What? And the answer is very simple. I'll tell you. With the due permission of this devotee, without taking a name, I'll give an example. I often quote this. We're gone to Chitrakoot. And Chitrakoot, there is that Parvat. What's the name of that mountain? There is a mountain, where just like it's considered as Govardhan or Vrindavan, that mountain is there in Chitrakoot. And on another hill, there is a Lakshmanji's temple, where it is said Lakshmanji would reside. So in that mountain, there are a lot of monkeys. And we were around 20, 30, 40 boys, youth. We were having our youth yatra there. Whole time, day and night, we are chanting the holy names of the Lord. Everything is good. We went and climbed up the mountain. We were doing some chanting and we went up there. And one devotee just went a little bit here and there. Maybe he tried to agitate the monkeys or something happened. One big, well-built-up monkey attacked this devotee. He literally jumped on this devotee. The moment this monkey jumped on this devotee, we were at distance, we were looking what's happening. So I was very confident, इतना भगवान का नाम सुना है, अभी तो कृष्णा ही बोलेगा. Yes or no? और जैसे ही बंदर उस पे लपका, मम्मी! अब मैंने कहा भाई इतना कुछ सिखाया, मम्मी याद आई, तू बाई चांस अभी नीचे गिर जाता, किसको याद करते हुए गिरता? And he remembered mummy. There's nothing wrong. I'm not making that point. I'm raising a point. Why did he remember mummy? Although he was there, he had been practicing devotee, he had been chanting the holy names of the Lord. He knows what my mother can do or what Lord can do. But why did he called out his mother's name but not Krishna, who is our eternal mother and father? Because in his tough times, when he went through challenges in his life, rather taking shelter of the Lord, he was practiced to take shelter of his mother. So it is not a one-time investment. When you are going through challenges in your life, what shelter you take is what you're going to take shelter at the end of life. And when you practice taking shelter of something, that will become a habit for you. You cannot think, प्रभु जी मैं 80 साल तक क्रिकेट मैच का शेल्टर लूंगा, मूवी का शेल्टर लूंगा, 2 बैक पाइपर का शेल्टर लूंगा, बट आखिरी 5 साल में सिर्फ कृष्णा कृष्णा करूंगा. But by that time you'll be so habituated. The moment you are disturbed, by default your mind will go in that direction. You observe in all of your situation what you do when you get stressed out, what you do when you're emotionally disturbed, what shelter your mind takes. Either some of you will be sitting with WhatsApp, chit-chatting, want to just enter into a virtual world, lock the room, and maybe speak to somebody. Some people, when they get depressed, they eat a lot. Different things. Imagine what you do. That is what you're going to do at the end. And that is what you're going to hanker. So that is the point which is mentioned here. So therefore, Prabhupada is saying in the purpose, don't wait for tomorrow. Start from today. What? Chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Prabhupada says, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. What is old age? Old age is a time before death. A question was asked to Srila Prabhupada, what is old age? Prabhupada said, anyone can be an old. Even a 5-year-old boy can be called as old if next day he dies. Because general tradition is birth, growth, and then old age. So a time before death is called as old age. That's a basic understanding. Not to scare you. But imagine, hypothetically, just to a little bit push you on the subject matter, if tomorrow happens to be the last day, what thoughts have